Last Count Corla, and many thanks for the opportunity to speak here this afternoon. At the outset, I want to say that delivering a budget, or indeed an alternative budget, as many opposition parties do, it's challenging, it's onerous and it's pretty difficult to put together. So while I don't agree with a lot of what's in the government's budget, I do want to state for the record that the elements I disagree with, I recognise they're the result of the government making poor political choices. They're not the result of any effort on behalf of the officials who work behind the scenes to put this together. Similarly, in my own party, I want to thank our policy team for putting together our alternative budget document. Budget 2023 was delivered as Irish households faced the biggest drop in living standards since the 2008 financial crisis, as earnings from work failed to keep pace with soaring inflation. And we were just treated there to a couple of minutes of the greatest hits of Fianna Fáil, but they left out the economic crash. They left out my poor auntie who has to talk to her kids on Skype. They left out the fact that they brought this country to its knees and drove it over a cliff. So when we talk about Fianna Fáil and how proud they are of their legacy, let them not forget what that legacy is and how it is felt in every single home up and down the length and breadth of this state. So I won't thank anyone in Fianna Fáil for a trip through down memory lane with them, because the memories for a lot of people in my family and in other families are painful. And we see again, quite as was pointed out by the deputies, the icy cold hands of Fianna Fáil all over this budget. And indeed, their very best friends in Fine Gael. There was never more than the width of a piece of paper between the two of them when it comes to policy decisions. So it's not so much that the opposition are the hard left, as was described, but we face the hard right every day, which I think has its effect on how we would appear to them. A lot of workers waited all year for this budget. They wanted to see what the state was going to do to ensure that their work would pay. There are many things that the government can do to influence how we make work pay, but two areas are the national minimum wage and delivering collective bargaining for trade unions. Workers are being battered by the cost of living crisis. The 80-cent increase in the national minimum wage is far from what was needed to ensure that work pays. Furthermore, the increase is totally inadequate as the first step towards progressing to a living wage. So that's, again, we see the contradiction at the heart of governments. They say they're interested in a living wage, but when the opportunity is presented, as it is every year with the budget, to move meaningfully towards it, the step is a very, very small one, which makes me think they're not serious about delivering a living wage at all. In the past number of months, there have been increases in rents, fuel, food, energy costs, to name but a few, and that's meant the cost of living has spiralled out of control for workers. A real and substantial increase in the minimum wage on a journey towards a living wage was what was needed in Budget 2023. The recommendation by the Low Pay Commission, which was agreed by Government, absolutely failed to grasp this. It was no wonder to me that the trade union reps issued a minority report and they dissented from that 80 cent. I said the same to the chair of the Low Pay Commission in the Oireachtas Committee on Enterprise, Trade and Employment yesterday. A higher minimum wage could have helped businesses by driving higher consumer demand. And we all know workers on a low income, when they get money in, that money goes out. They spend it locally, they spend it in the domestic economy, and actually increasing the minimum wage and moving meaningfully towards a living wage is an investment in local business. The government recommending a minimum wage of $11.30 is a 7.6% increase. It doesn't keep pace with inflation, and you'll know this because we've said it to you time and time again. If it doesn't keep pace with inflation, it is effectively a pay cut for the lowest income workers in this state. And yet yesterday and in the run-up to the budget, you hear again from big business owners and their representatives that a small increase, a modest increase in the minimum wage is going to hit them hard. But they should know that that money will go directly into their budget, will go directly into their coffers. This is the third budget in a row where billions of euro funding and supports have been very rightly provided to businesses to keep them afloat. To those businesses that are vulnerable but viable, they absolutely need this. But they should not be allowed to do what they did after COVID and pay massive dividends to their shareholders. The supports that are there should be for the businesses that need it. And when the businesses are talking about welfare on the one hand for themselves, they need to understand that this is a two-way street and workers have to benefit as well. Often the people on the business side of the house will say that more money in the economy through wage increases will cause a cost of living spiral. And of course it won't. No more than putting money into businesses to keep them afloat is going to cost an inflationary spiral. So while there is stuff in this budget that you would welcome, absolutely, there's an awful lot in it that is not going to deliver, particularly for low-income workers, and I think that's a shame.